What's up, everybody? I'm Metal Nick,
I'm Jeff Grindstoffer.
and welcome to episode number 10 of Vinyl Bang, where we are discussing sophomore albums today.
Episode 10, dude. That's crazy. We're up into double digits now. Like, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that kind of stunned me earlier, too.
Wow. Really, that's a really time-consuming thing that's taken up 10 hours of my life so far. And we need some royalty checks. We need some
Will you let me know when those YouTube checks
sponsorships, some royalty checks, some free Five Guys.
Hell yeah!
Yes. Yeah. This episode is a follow up to the last episode, the debut albums, the first albums. Not really so much an argument about which one is better. Just like it's usually. Sometimes the follow up to the debut album is whenever the band finds their sound and really defines who they are, and so we figured we would focus a little bit on that to discuss certain bands, and I'll tell you, dude, I will tell you, coming up with this list of sophomore albums was the hardest list I've had to sort through. I had like 30. Started off with like 30 albums. I'm like, dude, I can't do all of them. It'd be a 5-hour episode, so we had to, really trim them down and focus on the heavy hitters. But man, it was hard.
No, for sure, and there's definitely going to be some really cool ones that we talk about. Some heavy ones for me, at least. I know that some of these records that I chose today, when we discussed doing this album, I hit you up, was like, well, I got dibs on these two particular albums. And I know these are two bands that Jeff is a very big fan of and probably has better copies of than what I have. But these albums are very important to me personally. And I appreciate you letting me roll with this.
Sure, dude. Yeah.
We'll get to it. But do you want to start things off?
Sure.
Cool, man.
I am going to start off with one of the more influential albums that helped me define or find what kind of sound I was going to base my life around. This particular band, this album, I was in a band more than 20 years ago. I think it was before my 22-year-old daughter was born, was when I was in this band, and we covered a song from this album because it was just a major influence on our band at the time in the late 90s. Helmet.
Oh yeah.
Meantime, this album is just so good. This was my first impression of the band whenever I had saw the video for Unsung on MTV, back whenever MTV was actually music television, whenever they used to show music videos. And the video for Unsung, whenever I first heard this song, I was blown away by just how different it sounded from everything else, from the whole grunge movement, from the hair metal in the late 80s, just everything that this band or this song shown for me was just so much, and I loved it. I still love this album. This is I believe this is one of my Desert Island albums, just because it's noise. It's like I think I've heard people refer to it as dad rock these days, but the off times, just the structure and everything of this band. Whenever I first heard the album in its entirety, aside from just the song Unsung, the diversity in Paige Hamilton's vocals in the song In the Meantime, to begin with, he screams more than he sings melodically like he does in Unsung. And it's just like, I thought there were two different vocalists, but it's all Paige Hamilton. This is such a great album. Everybody, or a lot of people I've heard prefer Betty over Meantime, and I don't get it. Betty's a great album. It is. It has its great songs, but collectively, overall, beginning to end, this album just does not have a bad song. It is just so fucking good. But this is going off about my stories behind it. This is a 2011 remaster It is the 8th time that this album was pressed, and unfortunately, it's the only one I own. It sucks that it is the only one that I own, but that is bound to change as time marches on. I would love to have more copies. I'd love to have an original press. A couple of years ago, there was a bunch of bands that did a tribute to this album, including Fuck the Facts, Ken Mode. I can't remember who else. There was a slew of bands that did their own renditions of this album, and it's cool. It really is cool, but it's different from the original album. And also, Pig Destroyer covered "In the Meantime" on their Painter of Dead Girls album on their compilation. That was a compilation.
Yeah,
that wasn't an album, right? Yeah. But yeah, hearing Pig Destroyer cover Helmet, years after I had already been a fan of the album, was just really, really, really fucking to hear that.
Shout out to J.R. Hayes.
Shout out to J.R. Hayes, as usual. J.R.
Yeah. Scott.
Yep.
Everybody in Pig Destroyer.
Those guys.
Yeah, I never was a big Helmet fan. I did appreciate them because like they had songs around. I did have that In the Meantime compilation. I don't know if I still have it anymore, but I did buy it. I had a really cool looking pressing. I bought it specifically because Fuck the Facts was on it. Because those are my dudes and gal. I love that.
Sure. And those two bands that I mentioned were absolutely drawing points for me to buy that album. I just never did, and I don't know if it was because I was, such an avid supporter of the original that I didn't buy the Redux or what, but I don't know.
If I still have it in my collection, maybe we'll do some trades here some point. I don't know if I still have it though. I'm pretty sure I parted ways with it a while back, but we'll see.
We'll see.
All righty. Well, me next. Cool. This is a Sophomore album by a band that I've talked about quite a few times on this show, and I'm pretty sure I did actually talked about this album maybe once or twice. But Misery Index Discordia. This is this was their second album. Retaliate was their first one. This was their first album on Relapse Records. Came out in 2006. It was the first album with Adam and Mark, which I believe, like after this, their sound kind of evolved into the shape of what they are today. Let me see here. I'm pretty sure, yes, it's a clear.
Nice.
Shout out to Relapse and their awesome clears. This was I was good friends with these guys. I helped them shoot a music video a few years before this one came out, so they took me to Canada with them at one point. They actually thanked me on this record. It was the first album my name was ever in the thank you. So it meant a lot to me, this album. But I'm a big fan of this band. I'm pretty sure I've seen Misery Index more times live than any other band. They're great people. Adam was our first guest on this show. Jason Netherton has been huge in helping me get some really rare stuff in my record collection. Actually, I can't deny that. Like, I will get to that someday when we get to certain records, but I do have some cool gems because of Jason. But Misery Index alone, they were just such a great band. When this album came out, I remember they played a lot of shows around the way, and like I said, when Mark and Jason and Adam joined the band, the sound changed a lot, and Mark was taking over on a lot of vocals and giving Jason a break because he's been doing it for years before with Dying Fetus. But man, I just remember just having so much fun with these guys after this album dropped. I saw them so many times, became great friends with Mark and Adam after that. And it's been nothing but a blast. But this record was a fun one for me. I'm sure you too, Jeff, when this record came out, I remember you being really proud of your hometown boy being there, being on this record, because like, it was a big deal to me. I remember they were not saying struggling for a while, but they went through quite a few member changes. And once this lineup came about, like Mark and Adam were pretty steady and they were able to tour so much. They got on a lot of tours. After Traders came out, it was like they were like workhorses basically out on the road all the time. But this was a great second album. I mean, Unmarked Graves, Conquistadors, Outsourcing, Jehovah, Breathing Pestilence, Meet Reality. There's tons of them. They're I can't pronounce this last one, but this was a great fucking record. I love this a lot. Oh, there's a Nasm cover, there's a bonus track on here. But yeah, Misery Index, one of my favorite fucking bands. This is a great sophomore album for anybody who hasn't listened to this one. This is a great one.
Absolutely. Yeah, that album. Whenever Mark and Adam joined the band, I mean, I was a fan of their work with Mark being in Cast the Stone, and with Adam being in All Will Fall, who were local bands for me in Missouri. I grew up listening to those two bands, and then whenever I found out that those two had joined Misery Index, those two joining the band made me a fan of the band, because I'd never known Misery Index through Retaliate, or anything like that. But once Adam and Mark joined for Discordia, that was the first album that I listened to from Misery Index, and it's a solid album for me.
Yeah,
it's just so heavy.
Oh man, Mark does the vocals on that last track, and it's very noticeable that that's not Jason. That was all Mark. I remember the first time seeing them play it live. God damn, it's just that band just sounded so complete to me at that point. I was very excited for what they were going to do, because the next few albums they put out were just solid, fucking great from start to finish, solid albums. And
absolutely,
even now when Sparky left and Darren joined, like they're still putting out some great records. So they just announced the other day a new one coming out, I believe, next year.
Yeah,
so that's exciting. Yeah,
I'm definitely excited on the strength of I mean, they've never done a bad album.
Nope.
Ever.
And they've never written the same album twice.
No, they've never compromised their sound. They've always
appreciate that about them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
I think Mark is a great songwriter. He's taken over some good spots with that band. Him and Adam and Jason, and Darren, when they get together, they got some good shit in the lab and the riff lab, and they've never disappointed me, man. Everything they keep putting out is great. So
right. Well, maybe because of my question to Adam in his episode about the fastest BPMs, maybe that will inspire him to really go to Blast Town, and really really beef up the BPMs on the new one. So maybe we'll get a faster song because of me.
Fuck yeah, hopefully. Put that man to work.
Put him to work.
Yeah.
Quit fucking around, Adam. Come on, play faster. Play faster.
I would say that, actually, that show that we went to in Baltimore where Misery Index and Pig Destroyer played back to back, when Pig Destroyer played last, and I yelled out to him, "The drummer of Misery Index is much faster than this drummer." I think he took that to heart.
I'm sure. Get that guy out of here. Get that heckler out of here.
All right. Moving on.
Funny. All right. Keeping up with the metal aspect, because there are several that I picked that are not metal. They're heavy, but just not necessarily metal. The next one that I'm going to bring up is another introduction to the band for me. This album was released in 1995, and I didn't discover this until, I don't know, several years later. But definitely a standout album for me. Meshuggah, Destroy, Erase, Improve. One thing about this particular record, I don't know if you can tell, but it is bigger than the sleeves.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit, so I have to put it in there long ways because it doesn't fit. It's weird. It's the only album I own like this, but it's even the 12-inch, you can see that it's bigger than the jacket itself.
That's wild.
It's wild. I don't know why, but it stays on the shelf like this. I put it in the back so it doesn't slide out. Anyway, I love this album. It is just so good. Again, it's one of those from beginning to end. It just phenomenal album. And the pressing is aesthetically pleasing as well. It is just very, very, very awesome.
Really cool looking splatter.
Yeah, and it's a gatefold double disc. Both records are the same pressing. But Nick, you did a pressing of this for the debut episode, the first episode that we did, and it was a different color, correct?
I did the Swedish flag one. Yeah, that one was awesome.
Yeah. This run of pressings was the last run that they did in 2013. I didn't even put down what year this was pressed. This was the last year that they did the pressings with the original artwork. Everything after this they did in 2018. Did we say?
Yes, I believe
2018. Whenever they remastered and reissued the vinyl, it had a completely different cover, completely different artwork, and all that. But this was the last run of pressings from Germany. I did write that down. So the last run of pressings from Germany that had the original artwork. This particular pressing was limited to 500, and I don't think it's numbered.
No. 2012 is when those were pressed. And
12.
500 of what you have in your hand.
Yeah, 2012, not 13. Sorry.
There you go.
But yeah, again,
this is the second pressing, by the way.
Second pressing. Yeah. And just, I mean, that album is ridiculous.
That album, that fucking album, man. Soulburn. Trying to think, but Suffer in Truth. There's just some fucking heavy hitters on that record. I know a lot of people love
Future Breed Machine.
Yeah, Future Breed Machine's a great opener, but man, there's just that fucking record. Just there's some moments on there. People always ask, because I have friends that will argue Chaos Fear is their best one, and then I'm like, you know what? That's a great metal album, and I think after that they went the proggy, the very proggy side, but like that record right there reminds me very much of like Dillinger Escape Plan Candiria, where they're like it's hard, heavy hitting, and then the jazzy shit comes in, and like, you know, like I appreciated that, I really did, because it, you know, it was Meshuggah just knows how to blend their stuff in well, and that record. I mean, some of the solos on that record are just whoosh, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's some good shit. So yeah, I'm glad you chose that one, because it's worth talking about twice on this show. That's a very good album.
Absolutely. There was a time a few years ago whenever I went to see Cattle Decapitation in Dallas, and after the show, like whenever I travel, majority of the time I drive. I make 36-hour playlists and just drive. After the show, I took Dave McGraw and I believe Bell. I took them out to eat, and Travis and Josh and all them, they were in another car. But whenever Dave got in the car, I turned the key on, and I don't remember what song from this album was playing, but he was like, "Oh my God, I love this fucking record. This is one of the ones that wanted me to start playing drums." And, it was just like that will always stick out to me. Every time I hear just Destroy, Erase, Improve, like Dave McGraw's enthusiasm for this album was very, very cool to know that he was very inspired by Meshuggah to start playing drums. So
how could you not be a drummer?
What?
How could you not be inspired by this band?
Oh, by Thomas Hawk. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But
he's something else. I mean, they're unexplainable. They are the most replicated band in metal today, hands down.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's all right. So my next one, we're gonna move away from the metal route here, but Jeff, you're gonna call me out on this one, I guess. When we were discussing sophomore albums, and I'm sending you all my ideas, and I guess last night, I was just like, oh, and then I sent you a text, and you're like, I'm calling you out, because again, this is one of my favorite bands, and this is by far my favorite album by them, and I don't know why I didn't think to talk about it, but Beastie Boys' Paul's Boutique, which is just, we talked on the last episode about License to Ill and how that album sounded in 1986 that record came out, and there wasn't a lot of I guess that not a lot of bassy stuff that was coming out, and what they did was very groundbreaking. Then they put out this album. They split ways with Def Jam, and they signed to Capitol Records, and the story behind this record is weird. It's, they met the Dust Brothers one of them met the Dust Brothers at a Hollywood party, and they just put together what is considered nowadays like mashups, but like they just would take samples from all these different albums where there's the drums and then layered on top with some bass and some guitars, and they just made this album. And Ad Rock heard it, and he sent it back to the guys in New York, and they flew to LA and recorded this album. And this is one of my favorite hip hop albums. I mean, this is one of the, I guess, the 2018. I don't know what the repress is, but this is the purple one. as you can see. But I mean, Jesus Christ, the songs that are on this fucking album, Shadrach, High Plains Drifter, one of my favorite songs, one of the most underrated songs of all time. Car Thief, which you just recently smartened me up, was Faith No More sampled that song, and our buddy James would tell me about that for years. A couple years ago, my sister flew me out to New York and for my 40th birthday, and we went to go visit where Paul's Boutique once was. It's something else now. But I got a photo of myself standing right here at the corner. I have this album, the picture disc of it.
Hell yeah, dude.
See if you can see it's better that way.
Yeah, that's rad.
The other side has got the songs on it,
Right.
but that's not the cool part. I have the test press of the picture disc.
God, that is so awesome.
Yeah, both sides are blank, but I've spun it a few times, and it's the real deal. Yeah, let me go over this. To All the Girls, which is an intro of just MCA shouting out women from all different regions of the world. Shake Your Rump, Johnny Ryall, Eggman, High Plains Drifter, which is, like I said, a great fucking song. The Sounds of Science, that song is great as shit. There's a funny ass sample at the end of that song. 3-Minute Rule, Hey Ladies, 5-Piece Chicken Dinner, Looking Down the Barrel of a Gun, Car Thief, What Comes Around, Shadrach, Ask for Janice. That's a funny little track there. And then there's 59, Christie Street, Get on the Mic, Stop the Train, A Year and a Day, which is a solo track that MCA did. Hello Brooklyn, Dropping Names, Lay It On Me, Mike on the Mic, and AWOL. There's a lot of songs on this record. They got a lot of slack for it because it wasn't Fight for Your Right to Party, and it wasn't, No Sleep Till Brooklyn. They went and did this whole different thing, and they had a lot of like funk and jazz and reggae influences on this record. They sampled the Beatles a couple times and somehow got away with it without getting sued. They just kind of like, I don't know. There was a lot of like backlash to this album because it wasn't as well received as License to Ill, and they didn't tour much or play too many shows. They were kind of falling apart, and then their third album kind of revived them. But
right,
this album, it's incredible. If you go back and listen to it, there weren't too many, it was a sample masterpiece in the 80s. There wasn't too many hip hop albums that were doing that. I think a lot of people credit and say like that was a fucking great album. A lot of metalheads have come to me the last few years and be like, yeah, I fucking love Paul's Boutique. I'm like, really? Like nobody talks about that shit. But yeah, Beastie Boys being one of my favorite bands. I of course I'm going to talk about that record. I'm surprised you didn't fucking just let me know that I forgot about it, Jeff.
Right. Well, whenever you sent me the list, I'm like, I didn't catch it at first either. But whenever we were throwing the list back and forth, and you didn't have it on there, I was like, I didn't put a second thought into it. Then whenever you sent me the text and said, "Oh my God, how can I forget Paul's Boutique?" It's like, dude, I'm totally calling you out on that shit. You call me out on not having the lucid interval clear. Yeah, I'm throwing you under the bus. But yeah, that was okay. In the respect of it not being well received and having the universe or commercial support that like License to Ill had, was there any videos off that album?
Yeah, there were a couple.
I don't remember
Shake
seeing
Your Rump
on TV.
Shake Your Rump
that I saw like years later.
Hey Ladies. Hey Ladies was the big one that they were pushing originally because that was like the album. If you bought it, some places when they give you away promotional items, they gave away a cowbell that said Beastie Boys, Hey Ladies. And that sells for a lot of fucking money. I've reached out to people trying to get one of those. And Looking Down the Barrel of a Gun. There was a music video for that.
I remember the first time, I guess I wasn't really watching MTV at the time or whatever, but I remember Anthrax covering that.
Yeah, on the Beavis and Butthead experience.
Experience.
You're right, they did. Let me see if there's any other. I don't think Shadrach. There's a music video for Shadrach, and it's they filmed a live concert, and then MCA went back and did like an artist rendering of it, like if you were in court and you would see like they draw like how people are.
I remember that. Yeah.
That's actually a really fucking awesome video. And it's performed live, so it's not like the album version, and it's got a little bit of like extra shit in it. But
right.
Yeah, they do have a couple music videos from this album. I wish they would have done one for Car Thief or High Plains Drifter. That song, if if you're watching this episode and you're listening to me talk right now about this, go listen to that song. Like it's brilliant. It really is. I think they have the Eagles bass line sample in there, some song from the Eagles, but it's like almost two of them are a cappella back and forth while one of them is rapping on top of it. It just the way it's laid out, it's pretty fucking brilliant, actually.
Yeah.
And it's a very cool fucking story that they're telling in this song. Just listen to it. It's really fucking cool. So if you want to go listen to a Beastie Boys song, High Plains Drifter, listen to that one. That song goes off at 10:15 every morning, and it lets my cat know it's time to eat his wet food. So that song has a lot of meaning to me.
Sure. Absolutely.
All right, moving on.
All right. Well, I guess since I'm not changing the order of the records that I had them in, I'm not going to take this next album out of rotation just because we just talked about a rap album. So I'll go ahead and go with Run the Jewels. Run the Jewels' second album. This album was my introduction to the band. I discovered Run the Jewels through a show on HBO called Silicon Valley. At the end of one of the episodes, they played Blockbuster Night Part 2. And after, while I was watching the credits of this episode, I'm like, damn, that's good. Who is this rap group, So I looked it up and, of course, found that it was Run the Jewels. And they had just released this particular, their second album around the same time. And I immediately became a fan of this group. I've been a fan ever since. They are one of the newer groups that came out in the last 10 years that I actually enjoy. I've seen Run the Jewels twice, open up for Rage Against the Machine on the 2021 tour, and they were as phenomenal live as they are on album, on MP3, on vinyl, whatever. Love Run the Jewels. This rap group is great. This particular pressing, my phone timed out while we were talking. This particular pressing is the 9th time that this album has been pressed on vinyl, and I love this pressing. It is a great looking pressing. The first couple of pressings on vinyl that they did, there's a track on here called Love Again, which is a pretty fucking raunchy Run the Jewels song. It's all about sex, and there's a rapper, a female rapper on that song called Gangsta Boo, and her verse is not included on this pressing or the majority of the vinyl pressings after the original press, and I don't know why. Her verse was taken out of the last few pressings of this vinyl, but it sucks, to have something that's as integral. And as integral on the album taken from it, but it is what it is. And I'm pretty sure the original pressings go for hundreds of dollars and are hard to find and whatever. But so I'm content to have my pressing of the second album. This one was a Record Store Day essential in 2019, and it came with an Obi strip or an Obi strip type little design thing that went on the side.
Cool.
Yeah. And of course, I don't leave it on there because I don't want it to get tore up whenever I take it in and out of the sleeve or whatever. So I just keep it inside of the gatefold. But this is absolutely one of my favorite albums from the band with Blockbuster Night Part 1, Close Your Eyes and Count to Fuck, featuring Zach De La Rocha of Rage Against the Machine. All My Life, All Due Respect, Love Again. It just phenomenal rap album. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I used to know a lady who was a big fan of them, and I checked them out. I think the only one I have is Run the Jewels 4. But yeah, and I saw them 2 nights in a row open for Rage Against the Machine, and that was awesome. They the one night they did that song with Zach. So that was, I think Rage brought them on stage and they did the song that way.
Yeah, that was how it was whenever I saw them in Cleveland. Rage brought them out and they did.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. My next band is a band that so back in the year 2000, I went to the Ozfest, and I was very excited that year because Pantera was playing. They're about to tour their final album, Reinventing the Steel. Soulfly was there. I can't remember. I think maybe Godsmack, Static X, Kitty. There were quite Disturbed. There were quite a handful of bands that were on that particular year. Also on the main stage, there were bands like Methods of Mayhem featuring Tommy Lee of Motley Crue, which I wanted to sit and just so I could say I saw Tommy Lee. It wasn't that good. And then a band called Queens of the Stone Age that I'd never heard of before. And I just wanted to check it out. Just be like, Ozfest, they always have like one weird band that doesn't fit in that's on there. And I believe that year was Queens of the Stone Age. I don't know why they were on. I was like, this band is fucking terrible. Why am I watching this shit? A few months later, I worked at a Tower Records, and we would play music all day long, new albums. And one day I kept hearing this album over and over, and I went and said something to somebody, yo, what is this? And he was like, it is Queens of the Stone Age, rated R. And I just, are you serious? Like, I just saw this band live, and they were fucking terrible. But what I'm hearing right now is not what I saw live. This band is fucking incredible. And this album was just so catchy, and like the opening track, Feel Good Hit of the Summer. If you haven't heard that song, that's a fucking track that, I think anybody, if they heard that, they would start singing that shit over and over again. The Lost Art of Keeping a Secret, beautiful fucking song. Leg of Lamb, Autopilot, Better Living Through Chemistry, Monsters in the Parasol. That's a fucking awesome song too. Quick and to the Pointless. In the Fade, Tension Head, Lightning Song. I Think I Lost My Headache. I vividly remember them playing Ode to Clarissa at Ozfest, and that's, I think, what really turned me off about it. But this is what made me a fan of this band. I really overlooked them the first time I saw them live. I found out a few years later that they were releasing a new album with Dave Grohl on drums, which I was like, holy shit. And we all know how that album turned out. I think you talked about it in the first episode.
Yeah.
I don't have a very unique album version. It's a standard black. This is image of this dude here, which is, I remember like when I had the CD, that's what it was. But I suck at that. I'm sorry. But this album is really what made me a fan of the band. I wasn't even a fan of the first album that came out before this is self-titled, but I do remember becoming a bigger fan when Songs for the Deaf came out. But I overlooked this band. I judged a book by its cover, and I'm going to talk about that later again in this episode with another band that I judged the book by its cover because of the title of the band just didn't do it for me at first. But I seeing them live didn't do it for me until I heard this record. And sometimes it's the reverse, where the band sounds better live than they do on record. I've noticed over the years when I've seen them live or listened to them that they speed their stuff up live so they can fit more songs in the set. I don't really like that too much, but who am I to tell this guy? I think Josh Homme is a brilliant songwriter, so he doesn't need to be taking tips from some scrub like me. But I definitely am a big fan of this album. The next couple albums they put out were great, and I know you've seen them a lot more than I have, and I think you've got probably a better pressing of this album than I do, Jeff. But this album is a great sophomore album. I strongly recommend this if you've never listened to this band.
Yeah, absolutely. The bass line for In the Fade is just
yeah. Like I would always tell people, like there's Josh Homme is like one of probably the most brilliant songwriter of the last like 20 years. Like he really knows how to put a song together. He knows how to make stuff groove and sound great. Like I don't really want to complain too much about their music. Those songs are just so good, And that album in particular, it puts me in some vibes sometimes. It's one of those like puts you in a mood where you just relaxing and just feel great. And that album is one of them for sure.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. The Queens of the Stone Age, for the most part, I mean, their albums are pretty make you feel good. They're relaxing albums. Except for stuff like Quick and to the Pointless, where it's like turn on, I mean, they have their heavier aspects to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, dude, I mean, like you can tell whenever you're listening to a Queens of the Stone Age album, it just so good.
No, you're right. They definitely make me feel great. Put me in a better mood when I listen to their music for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right.
Great band, great album for sure. And as far as me having a bear pressing, I think I've got the same thing actually.
No, you don't have like the blue one or the red Redux one.
No, I don't. I don't have the red deluxe one. And speaking of that, there are songs on Spotify that are on that album that I don't know if they're on the vinyl. Like "You're So Vague," "Born to Hula." Those songs are so good. They should have been on the album. But I mean, I see why they weren't on the album because they don't really fit the aesthetic of the album.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a couple of bonus tracks on that album that are just like some of my favorite Queens of the Stone Age songs ever.
Oh, that's cool.
Just so good.
It's cool to know. Yeah, sometimes B-sides are better than the stuff that makes it on the album, but you're right because it doesn't fit the aesthetic of what the album is they're trying to go with. They just didn't make the cut.
Right. Yeah, those are a couple bangers for sure. Mm-hmm. So, all right, moving on from Queens of the Stone Age. This next album was my introduction to this band. I had discovered them a couple of years after they had released their debut album. Origin, Informis, Infinitas, Inhumanitas. This album is just so good. I mean, just rips from beginning to end. The Larva of the Lie, the speaking part at the beginning of Inhuman, the second track where it's Alan Rickman from Dogma, where he says, anyone who isn't dead or from another plane of existence would do well to cover their ears right about now. And then it just, just rips. This album is, it's, I don't know if it's, I go back and forth about what my favorite Origin album is, but this has been pretty consistently what my top pick for favorite Origin album, just because it's so good. It was definitely a staple. I don't know if it was one of the first technical death metal albums I ever heard, but it's definitely one that gets played a lot more than majority of the other technical death metal albums, just because it is just so good. It just no real stories behind this, except for, like I said, it was the first album that introduced me to Origin, and the artwork. Fucking dude, that artwork is so badass. It just definitely a follow up to the debut album, and I've been a fan of this band ever since. Every album that came out after this was just bought it the day it came out or pre-ordered it or whatever. But yeah, Origin, and this was the only vinyl pressing. This was released by Agonia Records in 2000. I didn't even write it down either. I'm so bad at taking
a couple years ago, I remember.
Yeah, 21 or 22. It hadn't been very long. Or no, it was before the pandemic, because I believe I bought this from the band right before the world shut down, because I saw them like 2 or 3 days before the pandemic hit and everything was shut down. So I'm pretty sure I bought this on tour in 2020. So it may have been 19 or 20 whenever it was released, but they did a pressing of 500. They did 320 or 375 copies on black vinyl, this is just standard black. I'm not going to break it out. And the other pressing, they did 175 on silver, which I would like to have, but this is unfortunately the only pressing that I have on vinyl. But it sounds so good on vinyl. It really does. But yeah,
I remember a friend of mine telling me about that album, and he would play it, and that sample from Dogma used to make me laugh. I was like, yeah, that's a brilliant intro.
It's a brilliant way to start a song.
Sure. Yeah, that band is the introduction of gravity blast beats. I've never heard a band do that until I heard Origin, and Longstreth just fucking, what a drummer, man. I mean, shortly after that, I think he was in Skinless for one album, and then he did like a tour or two with the Red Chord, and then went back to Origin after Echoes of Decimation. But I guess I talked to Paul more than anybody else in that band, but what a fucking band. They're so, goddamn live. They're so great.
Yeah.
And just the whole point of that band is play fucking fast, and those dudes deliver for sure.
Yeah, they're definitely some of the most talented musicians ever. I mean, just like Claypool, watching him, play on the bass. I'm watching Mike Flores. It's just
Oh my God, yeah.
so like his fingers are so fast, you can't even comprehend what you're watching. Watching Flores play bass, it's just so good.
No,
Phenomenal band. Love those guys. Love Origin. Love you guys.
Get your card stamped, Jeff.
Yeah.
Your Origin card. Yeah. All right. I this next album I'm going to talk about is another childhood favorite of mine. You know what? I don't think I heard about them before this, and that's a shame because I know they put out their debut album, which Jeff talked about in the last episode, was a great one. And years later, when I discovered it, I was lagging, I guess. But Alice in Chains' "Dirt," quite a sophomore album. This is the 2009 Music on Vinyl re-release. I'm not going to break this one out because I have a much more newer pressing. I think was it last year that this? Let's see. Yeah, 2022 on Red.
Nice.
You can see. Man, I remember my sister having this album, and I would take it from her and sit in front of my parents' stereo and listen to that song. Where is it? Junkhead. I mean, Lane's scream in the beginning of that song, and it took me a couple years to figure out what the fuck he was talking about in that song. I wasn't really reading along with the lyrics, but this is a fucking album, man. Like, it's a desert island album for sure for me. This album is another one of those ones that puts you in a mood when you listen to it, and I'm gonna go over this track list real quick. Them Bones, Damn That River, Rain When I Die. Down in a Hole, which is a fucking solid one. Sick Man, Rooster, Junkhead, Dirt, Godsmack, Hate to Feel, Angry Chair, and Wood. And there's a blank track in here. I believe the fans labeled it Iron Gland, which has Tom Araya from Slayer on it. But when we talk about the big four grunge bands, Alice in Chains is the one that was always my number one. Like, I love Nirvana. Anybody who knew me as a kid knew I was a big Nirvana fan, but Alice in Chains, they always put out solid stuff. Their Unplugged is like easily my favorite Unplugged ever. Even though they had a couple errors on it, I think that was a fun show. This band, they continue to put out stuff. They are new stuff recently with Lane Past. They've got, I think, 3 albums now with William in there. But this album in general, as far as sophomore records, this one was a fucking banger. And like I said, I was going into middle school when this record came out, so it meant a lot to me. As when I was developing what music I was listening to as a kid, developing me as a human being, and this album, man, it was a big one for me, actually. Sure. Like, I love Nirvana, but Alice in Chains, they stuck with me longer than Nirvana did, I believe, because I buy all their new stuff and still support this band. Weirdly enough, I've only seen them live once, but I've seen Jerry. Saw him back in 2002, and he had Robert Trujillo on bass and Mike Gordon on drums. And he did the first 2 songs were like from his first solo album, and the rest of the set was all Alice in Chains. And man,
that's right.
Amazing. William Defoe was there, and he was doing vocals, or William Duvall. He was there, and they, he said this is he's from DC, and a couple years later when Alice in Chains reformed, they announced him as like the new vocalist guitarist, which was awesome because he does a great job, and even on the new songs, he does an excellent job at those songs that he does. So yeah,
that album Dirt, I bought it, and it came out in '92. I bought that on cassette when I was on a church youth trip. The church I was in Louisiana, Missouri. We took a youth trip to Columbia, Missouri, to the mall, and I bought Dirt and Megadeth Countdown to Extinction on a church youth trip. And 2 buddies of mine, Will O'Donnell and Darcy Ferris, and we snuck off and watched Dumb and Dumber in the theater.
Nice.
It was just it was a great memory. But yeah, the day that I bought Dirt and Countdown to Extinction on cassette was a church youth trip, and I'll never forget it. that was, it was either late 92 or early 93. I don't remember when the thing was, but yeah, that was a fun trip.
Nice.
And speaking of like Magnetic Eye Records, the same guy who did the Helmet, the Meantime reduct, did one for Alice in Chains too. They did one for Dirt. Yeah, they did the same thing where they had bands go through and play their renditions of Alice in Chains, songs from Dirt.
Yeah.
Same band or the same record label did the same concept for Meantime and Dirt. So
I do not have that, but I don't think I recognize any of the bands that were on it.
I don't remember who all was on it. I remember it was a different. I listened to a couple of them, and I'm like, yeah, it's just not for me because of how important Dirt was or Dirt is. It's like it was just a different.
Alice in Chains is a very unique band. They're not one that you'd want to cover. And I remember when I was maybe a senior in high school, there was a band I heard on the radio that I thought was an Alice in Chains cover band, and their name was Godsmack. And there's an Alice in Chains song called Godsmack, which I was just like, this can't be a coincidence, right? But I think Godsmack went on to write stuff that didn't sound so much like Alice in Chains, but you could tell that he was very heavily influenced by Lane's vocals.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, so many bands were, and so many bands should have been influenced by Alice in Chains, just because
you shouldn't be copying what that guy does.
No, you can't. You couldn't even if you tried.
No.
Not as you should, But yeah. Anyway. So another one of my Desert Island albums, Sophomore albums from the early 90s. This album was released in 1994. I was a huge fan of the debut album with songs like Plush and Sex Type Thing, and the big hits from Stone Temple Pilots' first album, Purple. This album is absolutely, without a doubt, one of my Desert Island albums, just because it's just there isn't a bad track on here. Even the 12 Gracious Melodies, little goofy little thing that they do at the very end of the album, it's such a fun album. Army Ants, Silver Gun Superman, phenomenal album from beginning to end. I saw Stone Temple Pilots once in the late 90s, I believe, with Weiland. They were on tour with Lenny Kravitz and the Black Crowes.
Wow.
And the one time that I got to see Stone Temple Pilots with Weiland, it was bad. It was bad. I don't know if they were drugged up or what the deal was, if they were just having an off night, but I was not happy with the only time I ever got to see Stone Temple Pilots. Other than that, this particular pressing, the first one that I got was from Amoeba Records in Los Angeles. I got the 2013 reissue, which was the 7th time that this album had been pressed since 1994. The second press that I bought from Hit Records in Columbia, who are my go-to record store locally. I love Hit Records, love those guys. They've always been good to me over the years.
Shout out to Hit Records.
Shout out to Hit Records, absolutely. I love Hit Records. They're such a good record store in Columbia, Missouri. Check them out. If you ever go to Columbia and you're looking for records, that's the place you want to go to. So good. I own 3 copies of this. This particular pressing is the 2021 180 gram. It's not open because I don't necessarily need to open it, but it was one of those that I had to have multiple copies of. And then the third pressing is the Walmart pressing, which is, I hate that it's become a thing that I have to go to Walmart to buy records now, but is what it is. They release certain albums on vinyl and they're just have to have them, whether it's the completist in me that has to have as many copies as possible, or if it's just because I have to have a copy in general, or what the deal is, whatever the scenario is. But yeah, and I'd love to open this. Actually, I'm not going to open it, but it's a blue splatter vinyl, and I'm sure it looks awesome. Yeah, I'm not walking.
Thinking about it, aren't you?
I am. I am seriously thinking about opening this because
It's not going to hurt you. You have one other one that's sealed, right? Gonna go get his knife.
Gotta get my Unidad trauma surgical. This is what I open records with. Unidad trauma. Shout out to Unidad trauma. Those guys are fun. But yeah, this is what I always use to open records. That way I don't, have to tear it off, tear the shrink wrap off and all that. But yeah. So this is a first on Vinyl Bang. I'm opening a sealed record.
There you go, Jeff. Oh yeah. Splatter's all right, but that's cool. That's a nice pressing.
Hold on.
That's Walmart doing a pressing, right?
I think this side looks better.
Okay.
Maybe a little more splattery.
A little bit more splatter, yeah.
A little more splattery, but yeah. So now that the what's it called? The value of this just went down since but yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to spin this one now that it's open. Just
compare it to the other one that you spin. See which one sounds better. Me have to hang one up on the shelf.
That'll be a follow-up episode as to which copy of Purple sounds better, the Walmart or the 2013 issue. But there you go. Yeah. And outside of that, like I don't really have any notes on this album. It's like one of my favorite albums of all time.
I feel like commercially that was their best album. They got a lot of they were on a lot of TV shows. There was a lot of songs of that were on the radio. One of my favorite covers that they was done. They covered The Ocean by Dancing Days. They covered Dancing Days by Led Zeppelin. Yeah. Really cool version of that.
Big Empty was on the Crow soundtrack.
Yes. That came out before that album because I was in the 7th grade and people were just in love with that song, but it wasn't on Core. And then I think a few months later, that album came out with Big Empty on it. Yeah.
Pretty Penny, just an all acoustic song. Mm-hmm. Interstate Love Song was one of their big hits.
Yep.
Army Ants, just such a good album.
Did you mention Vaseline?
Did I mention that was the song that got me into him?
Yeah.
Seeing the video for Vaseline? Maybe. No, because I was talking about the video with Helmet. But yeah, the very first song I had heard from this was Vaseline. I saw the video. Yeah. And I was just like, I was excited for new Stone Temple Pilots after being such a fan of Core. I was excited for a new Stone Temple Pilots album back in the early 90s.
Yeah, that Vaseline music video was all over MTV. Like I think like every hour that video was played.
And rightfully so, dude. I mean, that's one of those songs that were overplayed, but I never got tired of.
Yeah.
Never got tired of Vaseline. It's just such a good song. And now I work for a company that makes Vaseline. How do you like that?
All right. So my next one here is a band that probably, absolutely is one of my biggest collection pieces in my collection because I collect the shit out of this band is Weekend Nachos, Unforgivable. This album came out in 2009 on Relapse Records. Only the CDs were put out on Relapse. Deep Six Records put out all the vinyl. This is actually a final show vinyl, number 25 of 30. I just screen printed with like the gold cover. This is what the non-screen printed looks like. It's kind of got the foil stamp on there.
Right.
It's a little kid's decapitated head that sucks.
That sucks.
Blue vinyl.
Yeah.
First time I ever heard about this band was I don't remember what Death Fest it was. I believe it was the first year you went, but the year was 2009, and I remember they were announced that they were playing Death Fest. This is me judging a book by its cover. I was like, Weekend Nachos, what a stupid fucking name! Like, and I went onto this message board where people would, there's one guy on this board who was very like critical of the shit he listens to, but he was like, oh shit, Weekend Nachos are playing. He's like, if you're going to that fest, check them out. So I was like, do I need to hear this band? So I went and listened to them, and I was just like, oh my god, like it's actually pretty fucking cool. It didn't sound like anything I'd listened to before. I hadn't heard Infest yet, but I remember seeing them at Death Fest that year, and I feel like I missed thought I missed half their set, but no, they played like a 15-minute set, and I bought a shirt, walked over, talked to a couple of them for a while, but at some point, like, they became one of my favorite bands, and I own so many copies, not of this particular one. I think I only own 3 of this album, but of all their albums in general. I have a pretty large collection of their records, and we talked about that in the last episode. But Unforgivable, this was a cool one. Elevated Tracks, Unholy Victory, Pain Over Acceptance, A Few Blocks South, Balance of Power, Nights, Rejected Psychopath, Shot in the Fucking Head. That's a great one. First to Burn, Reason to Die. I really love that song. It's got some doomy part in the middle, a little sludgy, I should say, and Unforgivable. This was a great fucking Sophomore album. This is what made me a fan of this band, because like I said, when you first hear that name, you're kind of like, but listening to them, going to see them live, like, this album just in general just sounds so fucking good. Shout out to Bob from Deep Six Records, because he put this out. He's put out practically most of their stuff on vinyl after they signed with Relapse. I think the only thing Relapse ever put out by Weekend Nachos on vinyl was the Bleed EP. But yeah, this was a fun one, and it like I said, collecting their records was a big deal to me, because I have practically everything with the exception of a couple test presses. But yeah, I have a lot of Weekend Nachos stuff, and just one of my favorite bands in general.
Yeah, they're another one of those bands. Whenever I hear them or hear of them, I affiliate you with them, just because of your infatuation with them, and how big a fan you are, and how much stuff you have in your collection of theirs. And yeah, they're fun. I saw them. They did a show with Pig Destroyer in Chicago a few years back. It was like one of their last shows they were ever going to play. And then they, of course, are coming back around now. Several years later, they're coming back playing new shows. It was announced the other day that they're going to be playing Full Terror Assault.
I saw, yeah.
Thinking about going just on the strength of Weekend Nachos being there, and Suffocation and Index is playing, and so far the lineup looks pretty fucking solid. So might look into going to that just on the strength of, like I said, of Weekend Nachos being one of the bands, just because I miss seeing them live. They are phenomenal. I did a few drum cams with their drummer, and getting a hold of him was just so weird, because like he goes under an alias, right? He goes under an alias instead of his real name.
Is it Byron? Byron is the drummer.
Byron Luger.
I can't think of his last name right now.
Well, that's wrong. It's wrong. I'm probably gonna get ostracized for this, but yeah, I do. I did a few videos for him. Filmed him a couple of times, but like I said, it was weird getting a hold of him, because I couldn't remember what email address was his, or how to contact him on Facebook or whatever it was, because of the alias.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're fun. They're absolutely.
Oh my God, yeah. Their live shows are fucking off the hook.
For sure.
All right, moving on.
All right, moving on. This is going to be a continuation of my contribution from the debut album episode. We're going to go with Primus.
Yeah.
Piece of Cheese. The absolute greatest album that Primus has ever done.
For sure. No argument.
Yeah, I'll argue that to anybody that wants to bring it up. You want to bring up certain songs, you want to compare songs, let's go. Because this is just this. There is not a bad song on this album. This was my introduction to the band in 1991. Whenever I first saw the video for Jerry Was a Race Car Driver, which I've given a lot of thought to this over the last few years. It's like every album they come out with, like, which one's their best album? What song is their heaviest song? And for a while, I thought it was Lacquerhead off Anti-Pop was their heaviest song, but no. Jerry Was a Race Car Driver is still the greatest song they've ever written. It was my introduction to the band. It's heavy. It is so good. That part in the middle, whenever and they just jam, and especially on the music video where you see the crowd is just like a huge wave of people just jumping up and down. It's so good. It is just such a great fucking song. But other tracks from this album, which are not to be forgotten, Here Come the Bastards, Sergeant Baker, American Life, Tommy the Cat. I mean, it's easily the best Primus album they've ever done. The best album Primus has ever done. Fish On, which is not heavy, but god damn, it tells a good story. It is a fun fucking song. This particular pressing, both of these were pressed at the same time in 2013. 2013, they did two different pressings of this. They did an undocumented number of pressings. I don't know if they did 10 or 5 or 10 or 20 or 100,000 copies. I have no idea. But out of however many copies they had done that year, there were 1,000 that were pressed on yellow vinyl, and it was sent out randomly. It was this was just a random. You didn't know what you were getting, because just like Nick and I were talking about earlier with another album, the barcodes were exactly the same. There's nothing on the exterior. If you were to go to the store and pick up two copies and go, which one's which? If there was one of these yellow pressings in there, there's no way to tell which copies had the yellow pressing. And I remember coming home from Maryland Death Fest in 2013, and there being two packages on my porch. Two packages from the same place, and I opened up one, and it was the black pressing, and the second one I opened up, and it was I won the lottery.
Nice, dude.
The coveted, very hard to find yellow translucent pressings of this album, and this one should be in a frame. It should absolutely be in a frame, but it's not. It's never been on the turntable. I've never listened to it, just because I mean that pressing it's important. It's important to me to have this rare copy of Sailing the Seas of Cheese. I can't say enough good things about it. I could do an entire episode about this album, but you know, a lot of the time frame. Another one, like I was doing from the debut episode, I have a long box of Sailing the Seas of Cheese,
nice.
Which was my secondhand, from the same record store that I bought. The ones from the first episode, but it was something that I had to have the artwork in the long box format, and it's bought it for $5. Well worth every penny to have this empty box of the greatest Primus album on long box, and just like the hype sticker even includes Jerry was a race car driver, Tommy the Cat, American Life, and here come them damn blue collar tweakers. Those damn blue collar tweakers. Such a fun album, dude. It's so good. Absolutely love this record. Another Desert Island album, for sure.
Definitely. Those damn blue collar tweakers is such a fucking cool song. They at Woodstock '94, when they performed that song, they broke out with the national anthem on bass, Star Spangled Banner. But yeah. That I agree, man. That's a fucking phenomenal record. It's definitely the best Primus album. There's start to finish, not a bad song on that album. Man, you named them all. I mean, Here Come the Bastards. The way that just everything on that record. I know a lot of people like Jerry was a race car driver, or Tommy the Cat. I'm more of those blue collar tweakers fan. That was a cool one.
Right.
But yeah. Primus, just such a fucking sick band. That album is it's a masterpiece. So
for sure, it deserves its own museum.
It does, as I said earlier. It does. That album.
It does. It absolutely.
It's ridiculous how good it is. We can go on for hours about it, but I don't want to beat a dead horse here. All right, so moving on. This next album is a very important album to me. I thought about saving this for a particular genre episode that we're going to do in the future. But when we discussed sophomore albums, I text Jeff instantly, was like, well, I call dibs on this album, because as far as sophomore albums, this is my favorite album by this band. And it's also just a very important album for me because of some stuff I was dealing with in my personal life at the time. But Korn, Life is Peachy.
Yep.
This was a record. This came out in 1996 on Epic Records. I remember I have fond memories of listening to this album a lot, and have some friends. We had the Who Then Now VHS tape. We used to go and watch that like every day after school at this girl's house. Um, in 1997, my father passed away of cancer, and I remember just being in a weird place in my life. This album and another album that I'm going to talk about later really got me through some tough times. I wasn't one of those like your typical new metal kids who had like the hair painted over and nail polish and eye makeup on, crying to myself. Like I just like I love this band. I don't think I even owned a pair of baggy pants back then, but this album just like I listened to it a lot, and it just kept me together and it got me through some difficult times and like as you can tell, I'm wearing my Jonathan Davis shirt here today.
Fanboy.
What's up?
Fanboy.
Yeah. This was my favorite album by Korn by far. I remember when the next one came out, I liked it, but not as much. Was it Follow the Leader? I wasn't as a fan of it as I was this one. Even with their first album, I like that one a lot. But this album, songs like Good God, Lost, She, Swallow, Mr. Rogers, Adidas. There's a Ice Cube cover on here for Wicked, No Place to Hide. The last song, Kill You, is a pretty fucking deep one. But I remember I bought this on CD and it was an advanced CD. It had a live video of them playing Good God. Another friend of mine had a version that had the music video for Adidas. But this definitely sparked my love for Korn more than the first one did. And yeah, I have like a basic, black copy. I'm sure Jeff has the crystal clear, hand numbered, autographed by the entire band copy. But
limited to 5.
Yeah, this album meant a lot to me. My junior and senior year in high school, I would listen to this a lot on the bus, just bus rides to and from school, with my Discman on. But yeah, I Korn was a big deal to me back when I was a teenager. I know they're still a band and they're still rocking, and man, are they fucking huge now. I can't believe how big they are. But back when this album came out, they were not that big. They were playing smaller clubs and yeah, they weren't having designed the cover for the next Korn album contest on MTV for sure.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of bullshit I don't want to get into. But yeah, Life is Peachy. It's still in regular rotation. I mean, that album is so fucking good. It doesn't matter how many gore grind or however many bands I get into now that are faster and proggy or whatever. That album is still good. God, dude. I mean, that fucking song.
Yeah, that's one that always stands out to me in particular. That song, like I know it's not like one of the hits off that record, but I just like I said, when I was going through the stuff, the loss of my father, that song in general was just like it hits me in the heart really, really hard. And like, God damn, Korn was such a fucking good band. I mean, like, despite what people think about the new metal genre, like I was young, I didn't, I wasn't born listening to fucking Napalm Death. So, I went through different phases of metal my whole life, but Korn was definitely a huge band. I have no shame in talking about that. They were a huge deal to me as a kid.
No, I'm the same way. I'm the same. I'll go see Korn now. Now that the Korn tours that they've on, I've seen them numerous times throughout the years. Still a Korn fan.
And I believe you're friends with this band now, and that kind of blows my mind. Did you ever think about that when you were a kid that you're going to be?
No. The first time I ever watched Korn from the side of the stage, I was a 16-year-old me was just ecstatic.
I bet, dude. I bet.
Oh my God, I'm watching Korn from the side of the fucking stage, dude. Like, and Ray Luzier, shout out to Ray. He's been a good guy over years. The newest drummer for the new drummer for Korn. Ray is a great guy. He really is. Done a lot of work with him, and he's been very accommodating to me and my wife over the years, getting us in and just getting to like getting backstage and hanging out after the show and talking to Head and Monkey and just yeah.
I envy you, Jeff. I really do. That's awesome shit right there.
It is. It's very cool. I don't know if you can see my Korn VIP passes in the background or whatever. It doesn't matter. They're there, just blocked off by the sun. I don't care. But yeah, Korn is still a great band. Life is Peachy for sure. Like, man, that thing in the middle where they I forget how it goes, the breakdown where it just like stops and just.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking
Oh
about.
god,
Yeah,
dude.
man.
I
No,
miss it.
that fucking record just there's moments on it that, like I said, I was a young angry teenager when 1997 and 96, 97 is when I was listening to that album a lot. 98 too, I guess, but like, yeah, I mean, there's just parts in there where it's like a release, like how angry he was or whatever shit he was dealing with. Like I felt that anger and might not have been dealing with the same stuff he was, but I was absolutely a pissed off kid for no fucking reason. Well, I had my reasons, I guess, but
Yeah.
that album was definitely like it helped me get through some stuff because there those, like you said, like that scream in the middle, that breakdown. I mean, like, what a fucking brilliant record. I
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's definitely my favorite Korn record for sure.
Yeah, man. All right.
All right, moving on. The next band. This was the introduction to this band for me because of the involvement of Mike Patton. Because everything Mike Patton's done, I have to hear. I have to see what it is and be a part of it. This album in particular is the brainchild or the band. I'm sorry. The band itself is a brainchild of Mike Patton. He's done everything. He's composed all of the music, put everything together himself. He just has other musicians come in and play the albums with him. The musicians for this particular project is Dave Lombardo, the drummer for Slayer, King Buzzo, the guitarist for Melvins, and Trevor Dunn, the bassist for Mr. Bungle and Tomahawk and all of these other projects. This album is Fantomas, the director's cut. My introduction to this band, because back then whenever you had CDs, you listen to everything in order. These are all songs from movies throughout the years. Like so you see The Godfather, Der Golem, One Step Beyond, Night of the Hunter, Cape Fear, Rosemary's Baby. These are all Mike Patton's interpretations of these songs. And to hear this a very experimental project playing like The Godfather, for instance, the very first thing I ever heard from this band was The Godfather. And it starts off with what everybody's heard throughout the years, the way the Godfather intro music or the theme music opens up, and then it just really jams out. And it's just, this is my introduction to Fantomas in general, and it is by far my favorite album from them. Their last one that they did in 2004, I believe, was whenever Suspended Animation came out. They did a song for every month or for every day of the month of April in 2004 or 2005. I cannot remember whenever that album came out, but very experimental band, very cool project. This particular pressing was the only pressing on vinyl, and it's a bootleg. The band never officially released this album on vinyl until they did the I know I'm going to mispronounce this box set, the Wunderkammer. I don't know how the box set is pronounced, but in the box set they did a pressing of their 4 albums, every album on vinyl. And that was the only way to get that officially, or it's the only way to get that album officially from the band, except for this bootleg that came from, I think it was somewhere in Italy. I think some guy in Italy or something did this. But I mean, it's an obvious bootleg, a white label bootleg. I put a little dot on there to indicate what was side A, because I don't even think the Matrix has side A or side B or whatever. But this way I know, this is the first side of the album. I got to see this album performed live whenever Fantomas opened up for Tool, when Tool played the San Bernardino, the Glen Helen Amphitheater in San Bernardino, California on June 24th, 2017. It's the only time I ever got to see Fantomas. Unfortunately, never got to see them throughout their career while they were still performing live and touring and all this and that. But that was really fun. That show was Melvins, Fantomas, Primus, Clutch, I think the Crystal Method, I think, played. I didn't watch the Crystal Method because I
Holy
didn't.
shit.
Yeah. But they all opened up for Tool in San Bernardino. But yeah, I got to see this album performed in its entirety. Dale Crover was filling in for Dave Lombardo, who I think was on tour with Danzig or Suicidal Tendencies or something. He was off with some other band and couldn't perform. So Dale Crover performed with Fantomas to perform the director's cut in its entirety, which was awesome as fuck. But yeah, this is absolutely, and the audio for this doesn't sound bad. Sometimes with bootlegs, it's a gamble as to how it's going to sound, but it's pretty solid pressing, and kudos to whoever did this. But yeah, awesome album, and their first one was called Amenaza al Mundo or something.
Mm-hmm.
Some weird name like that, but yeah, it's not as good as the director's cut.
The only time I've seen them live was with the Locust opened for them at the 930 Club in Washington, D.C. I think it might have been 2005.
Yeah.
But I remember like their setup, like Dave Lombardo's drum kit was like sideways, like not facing the crowd. It was like on the side of the stage facing like, the rest of the band. And like Patton had his little thing. Buzz came out. I was like, oh my God. I didn't know who all was in this band.
Mm-hmm.
But it was an interesting night.
Yeah, they were fun live. Like I said, I wish I could have saw them like you saw them, in a club, not in a big ass amphitheater out in the middle, at 4:00 during the day when the sun's beating down and California and shit. I'd rather see them in an enclosed, intimate space, but that's cool. You got to see them.
For sure. Yeah. All right. So when we, moments before, or maybe a couple hours before we hit record here, Jeff, you hit me up and you were like, I got one more. And I said, do you want to do 8? And you said, do you have time? And I'm not going to lie. It took me a little bit of time. I was sitting there staring at my shelf for a good 15 minutes. I could have gone on Discogs and made this a little easier for myself. But I was looking and looking, and then I was like, ooh. And then I finally used Discogs to make sure, because I had to check with a couple of these albums, and some of them were not second albums. This one was definitely a sophomore album. Wu-Tang Forever.
Nice.
I got this is a music on vinyl press. So if you could see it here on the back, it's get that fucking
your light's like right there. 307.
1,300 out of 2,500 copies.
Oh.
It was pressed on I'm not taking them all out, but I'll take one. 4 times clear vinyl.
Nice.
I remember being in I was a sophomore in high school when this record came out. Coincidence enough, because it's our sophomore episode here. But I remember a lot of people skipped school to get this record, and then they announced maybe a few weeks later that they were hitting the road in the summer with Rage Against the Machine, who just put out their sophomore album, Evil Empire. I saw this in Columbia, Maryland. We showed up a little late, didn't catch all of Wu-Tang, but we definitely saw all of Rage. And I remember going over to buy a T-shirt, and I saw Method Man walking around, and everybody was trying to jump over this fence to like get to him, and he ran off to his bus. But man, this album is a double album, so that's why it's on 4 fucking records. Reunited, for heaven's sake. As high as Wu-Tang gets, there's some fucking bangers on this one. A Better Tomorrow, Triumph. Let's see what's on here. Bells of War, Duck Season, Dog Shit. That's a funny ass one. This was a great record. I remember, this. Most people know me as Metal Nick, and I get a lot of grief for listening to hip hop for some reason, but it keeps me sane, to be honest with you. This album was fucking phenomenal. I love 36 Chambers. The production on this one was way different. It was great that they came out with a second album. It was a double album. I had the CD as a kid, and it came with this interactive stuff. There was all these little videos in there, and hidden Easter eggs and stuff, and interviews with them. And this was a big deal to me as a kid. This came out shortly after my father passed away, and I was listening to a lot more stuff than your basic metal bands. And I remember a lot of the kids in my neighborhood, they were jealous that I had this because they didn't want to buy it, and it was too expensive. But Yeah, Wu-Tang, man. Like I saw them again a couple years ago with Snoop, and they were all there. Not ODB, obviously. His son was there, Young Dirty Bastard.
Yeah.
But this is a good record. This was a very fucking fun album. You know, like I said, I have a lot of memories driving around with friends listening to this album. I don't know how to say this. Listening to this album, listening to Cypress Hill, if you catch my drift. Um, yeah, Wu-Tang is a great fucking band. I've seen the Jizza live a couple times with his solo album. He performed it with live band, and a couple years ago it was him, Raekwon, and Ghostface Killer playing like hits from all their solo albums. So Wu-Tang still tours, they still do stuff. This is a great fucking sophomore album if you ever heard one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I dabbled in the Wu-Tang Clan, you know, growing up. I was never a huge fan until the last, I don't know, probably the last 10 years or so. I started getting more into hip hop and started expanding more and, you know, listening to more monumental albums like 36 Chambers. You know, a lot of people had talked about 36 Chambers over the years. I'm like, okay, I have to hear this album. You know, I didn't grow up with Wu-Tang Clan, but I have versed myself in them over the last few years. I saw them on that tour that you were talking about. I believe it was 21 or 22. Whenever they were touring with Nas and
Snoop, maybe.
No, Snoop.
Oh, okay. Oh, you saw them with Busta Rhymes. I remember you told me that.
The first run. Well, the first run, the first show of that tour was in St. Louis, and whenever I bought the tickets, it was Wu-Tang and Nas, and that's all I've been, you know, hyped up for months was Wu-Tang and Nas, and then that afternoon before the show, I met up with Scott Baumgartner, my boy Scott. Shout out to Scott Baumgartner. Love you, buddy. We met up for tacos before we went to the show, and we sat down, and he was like, so did you hear the Busta Rhymes got added to the show? And I'm like, whatever, shut up, you know. He's like, no, fucking seriously, Busta Rhymes is playing tonight. And he pulled out his phone and showed me, and I was like, oh my God. Like, I had no idea that Busta Rhymes was going to be on this show, and it was phenomenal. Dude, it was so good. It was a fun surprise for sure because I didn't know Busta Rhymes was going to be there, but he was fun. It was a lot of fun. That show was badass.
So on some dates, I think they had De La Soul, and then other dates, I can't remember, but yeah, that's quite a fucking lineup, man.
Yeah, you're telling me that was awesome, awesome show. All right, so my last album for this episode is a huge one for me. Huge one for me. Has been ever since the day it was released. I've had it on cassette and CD and all these different variants throughout the years. During the pandemic, whenever I had all this money saved up because I couldn't go anywhere or do anything, I found a copy, an OG press from 1994 on Discogs, and this is, I believe, one of the most expensive records I've ever bought. But absolutely had to have a first pressing of the U.S. pressing, or first U.S. pressing of this album, which came out in 1994. 9 Inch Nails, The Downward Spiral. This album is, I mean, I can't even begin to tell stories about this album or what it means to me and just what the effect that this album had on my life when I was 14 years old in 1994. Just absolute desert island album. I could listen to this album over and over and for the rest of my life and never get tired of it except for Closer. Fucking Closer was played so much and, you know, it was just overplayed. I got tired of hearing it, got tired of it being, you know, played every hour on the hour, subjected in movie credits and whatever. Like it was in the credits for Seven, you know, but whatever. Aside from that song, and I went for so long without listening to it, without being, you know, overdrawn by it. I saw 9 Inch Nails a couple of years ago, and they played Closer live, and I was so happy. I got to hear it performed live, and it just had a whole different feel to it. But it was fun, you know, to hear that song performed again live, or performed live for the first time. Like I said, the first pressings of this in 1994 were, I don't know if you can see that or not, were for promotional use only. You can't see that. I need a better camera. But for promotional use only, there were 3,000 pressings of this in 1994, and Discogs says that there were 10 copies mailed to 300 different retailers, which I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. But yeah, this pressing was limited to 3,000 copies, and the way I gather it, because I have all of the U.S. pressings, the way to determine whether or not it was a promotional is this parental advisory sticker in the top left-hand corner, because the other ones don't have it. The other one, the next pressing I'm going to show has it, but it's a regular size parental advisory sticker, not the smaller one in the top left-hand corner. But that's how you can tell the original U.S. pressing. And the reason why I keep emphasizing U.S. is because it was pressed 10 or 12 times through unofficial bootlegs, and there was a pressing in the U.K. that was the actual first pressing in 1994. It was in the U.K., but as far as U.S., that was the first U.S. pressing. The second one, this one came out in 2008. It was a reissue, come out in 2008, and that is like printed on the cover itself. It's not a sticker. It's printed onto the actual cover, where this one is a sticker. Like that one you could peel off if you wanted to, which I never will, ever. Would never peel that sticker off. But yeah, this was the 2008 pressing, and the third, fight with that while you're on camera. The third pressing that they did was in 2017. They did a definitive edition release of the Downward Spiral, and I can't remember if this was reissued or remastered 2017 audio on 180 gram vinyl, remastered artwork and more. And I haven't opened it. I probably should to listen to it, but I would rather have the original, the original mastering is what I listen to, and that's what I want to listen to, and that's how I'm content with it. Like, I don't need to hear a remastered version of the Downward Spiral. But even the artwork, like if you compare the artwork to the original and the remaster, I mean, there's an obvious difference. You know, it's the same album, but it's just like it looks different. You know, this is more polished than this. But yeah, I am happy to own all three of the U.S. pressings. I am beyond happy to own an original press of that monumental album in my life. Hopefully nobody ever asked Melanie how much I bought for it, because I don't want to talk about it. I just had to have that album, and I spent quite a bit of money on it, but love that album. Love the
Yeah, that's a cool one for sure.
For it, just absolute favorite Nine Inch Nails album ever.
Yeah, I remember being in the 8th grade when that came out, and like you said, Closer was everywhere. And my personal favorite off that is Hurt. That music video for that is just fucking incredible, and that's a great song about, I guess, what, his heroin addiction. They, you know, that I think that was the last album he did when he was using. After that, he got clean, and there was a noticeable difference in the music that he was writing and composing, and
right.
You know, they blew the fuck up after that for sure. I think that helped him out a lot. And he looks great now. Yeah, their Woodstock '94 performance was a big deal. I think they were rolling in the mud before they came out, and then played for like 2 hours. And you know, that album's great. I agree with you. It's a good one from start to finish. There's some cool songs on there. Right now, Washington Capitals star Alex Ovechkin, he's chasing Wayne Gretzky's goal scoring streak, and every time he scores a goal, there's a blog called Russian Machine Never Breaks, and they always post on Instagram like a picture of him with the number of goals he scored. So every time he gets closer to Wayne Gretzky's, every time he scores a goal, he's one goal closer to breaking Wayne's record. I'll post it on Instagram, and the music I always use is Closer. And it's either whether it's just like the intro or just some random part in the song, but it's getting difficult to like find a new part in the song. But as he's barreling down to the end and he's going to break that record, I'd like to use that nice piano piece at the end of that song, because it's really beautiful, and I think it's a little poetic from him, once hopefully he breaks that record. I hope he's only 55 goals away, but he's got about 3 years left on his contract. I think he's going to retire when he's done. But I know you mentioned how annoying that song "Closer" was, and you're right. That song was played everywhere, every hour of the day for many years. But it's a cool song. It definitely that was probably their most popular one in their discography. But yeah, good stuff there. All right, so my last one here is an album that it's a big deal to me as a kid. Like I said, in '97, I lost my father, and a lot was going on in my life. And there were two albums in particular that I listened to a lot going to school my junior and senior year. And these are two albums that really got me through some tough times. The first one was Life is Peachy, as I mentioned earlier. The next one would be Tool, Anima.
Yes.
This is, talk about sophomore albums. This is, like I said, I messaged Jeff. I called dibs on this one. I know Jeff is a bigger Tool fan than me. He's seen them a gajillion times. He probably owns more copies of their albums than I do. But I fucking love this record. There were some definitely rough times in my life, and I listened to this album a lot, and it just, there's a difference between Undertow and this record. If you ever listened to Undertow first and then heard this, you'd be like, is this the same band? It definitely is. Their sound progressed a lot. I know after this, there was a long gap between when this and Lateralis came out. And I was certainly, my music taste had evolved to a lot heavier and more extreme style of music. So by the time Lateralis came out, I wasn't as big of a Tool fan anymore. But man, I'm like I said, I was with my Discman listening to this album every day on my way to school. We go over these songs here: Stinkfist, Eulogy, H, Useful Idiot, 46 and 2, Message to Harry Manback, Hooker with a Penis, which they mentioned Beastie Boys in that song, Intermission, Jimmy, Dia Ivan Satan, Push It, Cesaro, Sumbability, Anima, Ions, Third Eye. I'm probably butchering all those song titles. I'm sorry, Tool fans. Don't crucify me here. My mother is German, and I remember as a kid playing Die Ivan Satan for her, and I was like, hey, Mom, I want you to hear this song and translate what this guy's saying to me. But before I do, you have to understand, like, if they're saying anything sexual or weird like that, let me know, and I'll turn it off, because that's a very awkward thing to play for your mother at such a young age. And I remember playing it for her, and she just kept smiling, and I wish I had a video so I could film her reaction. At some point, she just told me, she's like, it sounds like he's giving a recipe to bake some sort of cake, but he keeps saying, don't add eggs. So, thank God he wasn't talking. When you open up this CD, this is a bootleg copy, by the way, but when you open up the CD, there's a picture of them all sitting there on the couch with a contortionist in front of them, which it says is a woman, but like, you're looking at it, you're thinking it's a guy sucking his own dick. And it's a little weird. So I was a little scared to ask my mom to translate this for me, because I don't know what weird shit she was about to tell me. But
right.
Luckily it was just a recipe for, I think people tell me it's hash brownies. But this album came out in 1996 on Zoo Entertainment. It was officially pressed only 3 times. It's been bootlegged a gajillion times. I don't know, like, oh shit, I got this weird green one, and this purple one.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I've had other pressings of this before and parted ways with it, just because, like, I really want this band to officially release this again. I doubt they will, and if they do, it's probably not going to be with this smoke box artwork. I remember when you had the CD, it came with a lenticular cover, so all the eyeballs were like coming out of this. And man, this, like I said, the transition from Undertow to this record, in '98, I saw them on Ozfest and fucking blew me away. I mean, it was incredible. It was basically the end leg of them touring this album, and they played quite a few songs off this and Opiate and Undertow that night. But it was my first time seeing them. They didn't have the stage show that they had now, but they definitely had a screen up, and they were playing like some cool trippy stuff. There was like elephants having sex. There was like an eyeball getting having surgery on it. I'm trying to think what else there was. There was a lot of weird and neat stuff, but people know nowadays what kind of band Tool is, and their integrity of their live shows, and like This album really did it for me. This was like the peak of Tool for me, really. I still will go see them live. I'm never going to turn that down. They perform really well. They still write great music. Danny Carey is probably one of the best drummers on this planet. I'm not going to sit here and have that debate with anybody, but that guy is just, he's great. He really is. But Anima was a big deal to me as a kid. You know, like I said, it was one of those albums that got me through some rough times, and I really, really, really enjoy this album a lot. There's, you know, I was just spinning it before me and Jeff hit record today. I was listening to this album, and yeah, Tool, what a band, huh?
Right.
Don't break out your cell phone while they're performing live.
You can. Then we kicked out.
Yeah. I just saw a video recently of him yelling at some kid. He's like, "Put your fucking phone away,
dickhead."
Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick before we start telling stories about this album, this was probably one of the only arguments that Nick and I have ever had. Whenever he called dibs on Anima, and I was like, "Bastard, I want to do Anima." You know, it was Life is Peachy too. He called dibs on Life is Peachy, and I'm like, fine, you know. But I mean, it was. Yeah, I'm glad it's being mentioned at all. Just, I mean, Anima is such a good record, and I don't know if this was the exact reason why Anima sounds so much like almost like a different band from Undertow, but it might be drugs. Maybe it might have been the reason why. I don't know.
Oh man, I mean, Third Eye alone, that song. I mean, that's like one of the prime, that and 4062 were the only reasons I really wanted to have this on vinyl. But like, there's parts on that those songs that were just, I was like, man, I wonder what that sounds like on record. And they sound good. I mean, again, this is a bootleg version. I wish I had the original pressing, but I am not a millionaire and I don't want to spend that much money on a record. I know.
I also don't own an original pressing. I would love to one of these days, but
no, for sure.
Right now, it's just not in the cards. I don't know. I can't remember if my pressing has the intermission that goes into Jimmy or not. You know, how that it goes right into that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't remember. I think it's on the same disc, but that was one of the main reasons why I mean, I wanted to have it on vinyl just because it's fucking Anima.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have to have Anima on vinyl, you know, but I that was one of the like key things that I looked for whenever I first got it was how it's, or you know, whether or not they had intermission and Jimmy on the
I mean, yours is a gatefold. Mine, the one I have in my hand, is not. So that yours looks already better.
I bought this 3 times. 3 times before I bought the pressing that I was happy with. I mean, mine are just standard black.
Okay. Yeah.
Standard black pressings. I mean, it pisses me off. It has the lateralis eye on one side, but
some poser made that record.
Whatever, you know. and side D has the Anima as the actual, you know, Anima eye. That look at neat. Here's me inside of me inside of me inside. Eternal Jeffs for Infinity. But yeah, like I bought. The copy I bought before this was like I was like, I don't even remember. They were really colorful colors, and I called Jameson and I said, "Do you want this?" They said, "Yeah." And I sold it to him for cost. Like, you know, I wasn't trying to make money off of bootleg or whatever. But like I sorted through Discogs and found the one that looks like the closest to the original pressing. Like it's even got the gate, you know, in the middle, just like the original booklet. You know, it's got the angel babies and the alien looking thing, the xenomorph, and you know, whatever I could find that was closest to the original pressing was what I wanted. So
yeah, I always used to think that was a xenomorph too.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what it looks like. It's a fucking xenomorph. But,
yeah, man, that record, like I said, there's some great songs on there. I remember Third Eye being a big deal to me as a teenager. I guess I was intrigued with the whole message in the beginning and what that song is really about. And a couple years ago, I saw them back in 2017, and they played it live, and I was, oh man, I remember getting goosebumps when as soon as I heard this little intro that they were playing, and I was like, I think they're about to play Third Eye, and I'm sure that's nothing to you. You've probably seen it over a dozen times now, but yeah, I get very excited. You know, usually when they tour now, they only play like Stinkfist, Anima, sometimes 46 and 2,
Yeah.
Lucky Third Eye. Like songs like Push It or H. You know, I know Jimmy was a cool one that a lot of people liked, but Eulogy. There's a lot of them off that record that I'm sure they could break out, but they've got like 3 albums since this album, so they got more music, more current music for them to sell to the people. So
their catalog is a lot bigger for sure.
yeah.
Just like you, though. I mean, I saw them at Ozfest. Was it Lollapalooza? I think I saw them at Lollapalooza. Yeah, it was Lollapalooza in like '95. Whenever they were touring on Anima, and all they had was Undertow and Anima. You know, I mean, they played. That set was 96.
97. Ozfest 97. They did with Korn and Snoop.
Was that 97?
Yeah, it was the year before Ozfest. I know this for a fact because I wanted to go very bad that year and I couldn't.
I remember I did research on this recently. I don't know. But like they played Flood and Swamp Song and Crawl Away, and it was just like, oh, it was such a good set. The early stuff, before they got into the whole Lateralis and 10,000 Days, and of course, Fear Inoculum. But yeah, the heyday. I saw a funny story. The last time I saw next to last time I saw Nine Inch Nails in Franklin, Tennessee, I was talking to this kid that was wearing a Tool shirt. I said, "Oh, I just saw them a couple of weeks ago," or whatever brought up the topic. He's like, "Yeah, I've seen them 74, 75 times." I'm like, "Oh my God, dude, what do you do for work? Like, how do you do that shit? How do people do that? They follow Tool on tour. Like, getting tickets is hard enough, but goddamn, spending $150 every night on tickets, like, it's ridiculous." And I said, well, that's cool. I was like, first time I ever saw him was in like 96, and he goes, "Fuck you." Because he may have seen them more, but I saw them in their heyday, in their glory days, whenever they were, kids, before they had the big stage production and everything was stripped down and it was just them, on just jamming.
No,
that's when I first saw them, So anyway, yeah, Anima, dude, again, that's one of those albums I could just go on and on and on about.
For sure, we could do a whole episode about it.
I love it, dude. So good.
Well, all righty, that is the end of this episode. We appreciate everybody for sticking around. Thank you again, Jeff, for your time, and shout out to J.R. Hayes. Thank you very much, sir.
For J.R. And all that regular rigmarole. Are we doing new vinyl?
Do you have anything?
I got one.
Yeah, go for it. I don't got nothing this week. Go ahead.
The newest one, one of the newest ones that I've got, was a reissue of the 2004 album, Peeping Tom. Peeping Tom. This was the first time they reissued the album from the original pressings back in 2004. But I just wanted to show this off. It's not even the one I have open. Yeah, it is. It's the one I have open. The cool thing about this, is the cutout in the cover art. You slide that out, and it's got the silhouette of a naked chick. But yeah, this is a fun project from, once again, the greatest vocalist ever, Mike Patton. No laughter that time. That's very good, Nick. You're learning. Yeah, this is a fun project. It's not my favorite Mike Patton project by any means, but hearing him doing the R&B hip hop thing is kind of cool. Bunch of guest musicians on this. Dale Crover plays drums on a couple of tracks, like 5 Seconds. Dale Crover drums, which I didn't know until several years after the album had come out. But yeah, I just wanted to showcase my Peeping Tom record because it's Peeping Tom. Fun one. Fun album.
No, I don't have anything new that came in this week, unfortunately, but that's cool.
Yeah.
Talk about your boy Mike Patton some more.
I love him. We're BFFs. I don't know if you like. He asked me if I wanted to do a vinyl or a video podcast about records. I said no, Mike Patton. I'm already doing one with Nick. So. But anyway, yeah. So now Now that's the end of episode 10. 10 episodes, dude. We should like have a pizza party.
Yeah, break out the bubbly.
Break out break out the pizza. Because it's fun.
I'm more of a pizza guy than I am a bubbly guy, so we'll do that for sure. Yeah, thank you everybody for watching. This was a fun one. Like I said, Jeff and I, we recorded this one early because I was just so eagerly anticipating talking about some of these records. And I know, Jeff, you never disappoint with what you got in your collection. Those 9 Inch Nails records were really neat to see. And yeah, it was a fun one for sure, man. I can't wait till this idea you texted me about the other day. That's going to be a really fun episode.
Yeah, the next one. We need to get a couple more guests, and we're gonna do some special guests every now and then. But I think the next episode that Nick and I do is gonna be fun. It's gonna be a good one.
I cannot wait for this one. That's gonna be great. But till then, thank you everybody for watching. We will see you then.
Thanks, guys.